So this is going to be a new kind of series on this channel. I've done a few of these before, but it's been a little bit. So now I'm going to do this, in addition to my legal lessons videos that I do occasionally, and including some global reports that of course I'm always going to do in addition to my streams. I'm going to do a new reading series. A People's History of American Empire by Howard Zinn, Mike Konopaki, and Paul Buell. Shout out to my dear friend and great fan and subscriber, Nicholas Blythe, for the recommendation of this book that is very close to my heart, and I'm been loving and looking forward to reading. So now I'm going to read it to all of you. Here's Zach's new reading series. What's up, everybody? It's Zach the Celtics guy here, back with another type of video and a new type today. The People's History of American Empire. Now, like I said, shout out to my dear friend Nicholas Blythe for recommending this book to me, because him and I are both history buffs. We are both anti-imperialists, fellow anti-imperialists. We both speak out against war. We both collaborate on anti-war projects and more, and we do a lot of stuff like that together. Great friend of this channel. Subscribe to his channel. Shout out, link in the description below. So, I've already gotten through the first chapter of this book, and so far, I'm really liking it. It basically talks about what the people have gone through with regards to the American Empire. People around the world. It's a graphic adaptation. It's basically a graphic novel. Well, not basically. It is a graphic novel. And it just talks about all of the stuff that's been going on with regards to American imperialism. From the U.S. intervention in Argentina, to the U.S. intervention in Chile, to the Spanish-American War, to the slaughter of the Indians, to the U.S.'s institutionalized racism and bigotry against indigenous people, and many more. There's a whole bunch of different things here. And this one here that I read from here, it basically sums it up best. The open door policy. The government successfully broke the American Railway Union and the Pullman strike and sent Debs to prison, but crushing the resistance of Indians, farmers, and workers did not end the depression that started in 1893. The captains of industry looked abroad for solutions, new markets to exploit, and new enemies to rally the American people against. Yes, a classic example of going to war to distract your population. Uruguay, to protect American interests. Argentina, to protect American interests. That was, well, we all know what happened with that. How long have we been interfering in Argentina? Oh, just like we've been doing with Nicaragua. Nicaragua, 1853 to the present. Now, fast forward hundreds of years later, it goes from Trump interfering in Venezuela to Joe Biden interfering in Venezuela, trying to overthrow their legitimate president, Daniel Ortega. Nicaragua was to protect American interests. The Portuguese Angola, 1860, to protect American interests. Yeah, the Portuguese Empire, enslaving people in Africa. Portuguese Angola, Cape Verde, Mozambique. You go down the list. Crazy shit. Expansion was not a new idea. Even before the war against Mexico carried the United States to the Pacific. One thing you should also know about the Pacific is this. Even though Chile was a victim of American imperialism, this predates all of the most recent shit that's happened with Chile. But one of them being, the U.S. coup in Chile that resulted in the fucking U.S. Putting in Pinochet. We all know that one. Stay classy. But remember, Chile is guilty of imperialism too. This was also primarily with regards to the Spanish colonizers, but the Spanish colonizers in Chile robbed the country of Bolivia from their access to the Pacific, making them a landlocked country. So that's a little piece of history for you with regards to this about the Pacific. The Monroe Doctrine declared exclusive U.S. rights to development in the Caribbean and the rest of Latin America. It was issued in 1823 when the countries of Latin America were winning independence from Spain. Yes, because those were the ones that were colonies of Spain. One of the biggest colonizers in the world. Some of the biggest colonizers in the world, you name it. Britain being the biggest one, obviously. France being a huge one. Portugal being a big one, especially in Africa. Spain being a big one, especially in Latin America. Definitely, especially them too. Americans began to look at the islands of the Pacific and the great markets of Asia with the same propriety gaze from the start. The door hung by two hinges, military and economic expansionism. Oh, let's get to this one. This is a favorite of mine. To justify yet another invasion of Cuba in 1962. Oh, I'm sorry, proprietary. Sorry if I butcher any words by any chance. My apologies. In 1962, to justify yet another invasion of Cuba, the State Department released a list of 103 U.S. interventions in other countries between 1798 and 1895. Most were in Latin America and Asia. Latin America. Latin America, huh? Latin America being our backyard. In the past, now look at it now. Still our backyard. As an American, I say, no, it's not our fucking backyard. I, as an American, don't consider them our backyard. Latin America's not even our front yard. They're nobody's yard. They are independent countries, and these fucking warmongering pieces of shit have been colonizing them and ruining their entire countries and their societies just so that they can put in puppet right-wing dictators. That's all it is. To a bunch of rich capitalist assholes, overly rich capitalist assholes, going and robbing brown people in Latin America of their resources and overthrowing their legitimate government to put in a puppet U.S. government. This was dating back to the 1700s. The fucking 1700s. So we've been doing this shit in our entire existence. We had 10 major wars in the first 200 years of our country's existence. Do you know that we had 476 total interventions already in our entire existence? And half of them have been since 1991. Crazy. Just crazy. This is the history of American imperialism. And it's worse today. You thought Trump was an imperialist? Trust me, he was. Do you understand how much of an imperialist that Joe Biden is? And even bigger. I would say he's an even worse form of an American imperialist. He is George W. Bush with a D at the end of his name. And that is fucking fact. So, I read that chapter, 30 pages, loving this book. Chapter 2, the Spanish-American War. Both McKinley and the business community began to see that getting Spain out of Cuba could not be accomplished without war. Because the U.S. was jealous of the fact that Spain was in Cuba. So we're like, yeah, we're going to tell Spain to get the fuck out, and it's ours now. That'll show them. That'll show them. No, it won't. No, it won't. So after being colonized by Spain for hundreds of years, now this is where the U.S. has taken over. In the late 1890s, Cuba was a hotbed of rebellion as poor black peasants joined wealthy native-born whites to liberate the Caribbean island from the grip of 4 centuries of Spanish occupation. It was an uneasy alliance, freed from the shackles of slavery, but not racism or exploitation. Blacks saw free Cuba, Cuba Libre, as their path to equality. Revolutionary whites feared a takeover by the black majority, but knew that independence could not be won without them. Revolts had sprung up in the past, most notably the 10-Year War, which erupted in 1868 when Carlos Manuel de Cespedes, backed by other white farmers in Oriente Province, freed his slaves and announced the Grito de Guerra, declaring Cuba's independence. This is when Cuba was declared independent. And then when Cuba declared independence and basically kicked the Spanish colonizers out of their fucking country after they were colonized them for hundreds of years, then this is where the U.S. Empire stepped in. We despair of ever getting justice from Spain. We can no longer live deprived of our rights. Our only option is to take up arms and to assert our rights on the battlefield. Viva Cuba Libre, Cuba Libre, that they were all saying in the crowd. The war ended with an 1878 ceasefire. Spain retained control of Cuba, though slavery was officially abolished in 1886. Little change for blacks. The liberation movement continued to fester on the home front while exiled leaders of the 10 Years' War laid claim for the next War of Independence. Among them was Antonio Maceo, Great Chavez, the legendary black general whose exploits would earn him the title Bronze Titan. Costa Rica, February 1895. General Maceo. It is letter from General Gomez. General Maximo Gomez, Commander-in-Chief of the Liberating Army, informed Maceo of the outbreak of the new War of Independence. Thus, the smoke of gunfire is visible in Cuba, and the blood of our comrades is being shed on its soil. We have no choice to leave from wherever and however we can. Another grito has gone out, Liberito. The revolution has begun again. Maceo is returning. Maceo will free us from Spain. Maceo will free all the black workers. Sorry for the Mickey Mouse voice. No more slave conditions on the Spaniard sugar mills. Maceo is landing at Baracu. We must join the Mambises. Good, we will leave tonight. Finally, there will be no more blacks or whites. Holy Cubans! Silent! Get back to work! Whoosh! Takes the whipping. Whoosh! Maria Liberto and I are going to fight with Maceo. Pray for us. Vea con eso, Tomas. I thought I'd be butchering that Spanish, but wow. That's about as good as I'm going to get on that one, as far as Spanish is concerned. Still want to learn Spanish. Still want to learn some different languages. Don't get me wrong. I really do. It's going to take some practice. March 31st, 1895. Maceo's schooner was destroyed in a storm on Cuba's eastern shore. Maceo is here. Viva Cuba Libre. We must leave immediately, General. The Spanish know you are here. So this is basically a summary of what it looks like. So basically I'm reading the text and then the word bubbles of base of just like what the people in these scenarios are and what they're, what they've been going through. We must leave immediately, General. The Spanish know you are here. Maceo led a Spanish group of guerrillas through the mountains to a rebel camp in the Guantanamo district. Oh, Guantanamo Bay. Oh, man, Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay. Right. Because we were totally going to get rid of Guantanamo Bay, right?
The detention of terrorist suspects. I'm going to repeat one more time. As a matter of policy, the preference of the United States is to capture terrorist suspects.
Says the drone striker. But okay.
When we do detain a suspect, we interrogate them. And if the suspect can be prosecuted, we decide whether to try him in a civilian court or a military commission. During the past decade, the vast majority of those detained by our military were captured on the battlefield. In Iraq, we turned over thousands of prisoners as we ended the war.
And then he went on to say, Guantanamo Bay must close. My memory may not be all that great, but last time I checked, Guantanamo Bay is still there and is staying. Back to the book. This is... Wait a minute. I order all rebel officers to hang every missionary of the Spanish government who offers propositions of peace. Our motto is to triumph or die. May 4th, 1895. General Gomez and Jose Marti, leader of the Cuban Revolutionary Party, met with Maceo to decide on war strategy. Antonio, Jose believes we must have civilian control over the military. Yes, the people fear a military dictatorship. Who? Was Batista in their future? Political rivalries cursed the last rebellion. I support a military junta until we achieve victory. In the meantime, I will do what's best. Fight the Spaniards. That didn't go well. May 19th, 1895. Antonio Jose Marti has been killed in battle. This is horrible news. You might have to consider a civilian government. Our supporters in America say the U.S. government will not help us without one. Yes, and we need military aid. But I am afraid of U.S. intervention. Remember what Jose said? Once the United States is in Cuba, who will get it out? Nobody. 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 I'll tell you right now, who would get it out? It certainly wasn't this guy.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
And it wasn't this guy either.
Bush, some 530 detainees were transferred from Gitmo with Congress's support. When I ran for president the first time, John McCain supported closing Gitmo. This was a bipartisan issue. No person has ever escaped one of our supermax or military prisons here in the United States. Ever. Our courts have convicted hundreds of people for terrorism or terrorism-related offenses.
Did they prosecute any former American presidents for terrorism and war crimes like your former guy who was in there before you? Yeah. I'm here to tell you from the future, yeah, what will get the U.S. out? Hardly anything. Because once the American empire is there, they're there to fuck it all up. Oh boy. September 13th, 1895, revolutionary delegates met in Camagüey and created the new Cuban Republic. White Salvador Casenros Betancourt was named president. Maximo Gomez became general-in-chief of the army, and Maceo is second in command. President Cisneros offered me a high government post, but I refused. He just wanted more influence over you. I'm afraid that now the civilians will want to meddle even more in our military decisions. Oh, October 22nd, 1895, Maceo and Gomez launched the invasion of the West. By January 1896, the Liberation Army vastly outnumbered by heavily armed Spanish soldiers had fought 27 battles and an 800-mile trek from Orient to Pinar del Rio. As Gomez has insisted, the invasion brought the war to the rich landowners of the West. That right there, ladies and gentlemen. That right there. Maceo's success worried President Cisneros. The U.S. still will not recognize a republic. They think our cause is dominated by blacks. The general is giving Maceo too much power. Send this to Gomez. Send it. Send it to Send it to Gomez. Just send it. Just send it, and he'll get it. Then he's got mail.
You've got mail.
He's got mail. I have been relieved of my command, Thomas. Notify Maceo at once. Let's do it.
You've got mail.
Was he ever notified? He was. And he got the letter. The politicians are now directing the war. General Gomez wants me to meet him at Camangi. Maceo traveled east on December 7th. Spanish troops attacked his camp near Havana. Pew, 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 pew. So basically they were shooting at him. Blam, blam, and then soldiers going out and then going after with swords and everything. That night, Liberto mourned as Thomas wrote his wife, "Dear Maria, today our bronze titan suffered his 26th and final wound. I will carry you on the fight for you, our son, and Cuba Libre." The drum beat for war. The drums are beating. In the U.S., public support for Cuba Libre was growing. The Democratic and Republican parties declared their support, but President Grover Cleveland refused to aid the rebels. If only the modern presidents were able to not arm the rebels of today. But then, besides the point. When William McKinley succeeded Cleveland, he also refused to officially recognize the insurgents. Legal recognition would have allowed the U.S. to give the rebels without sending in an army, but he feared if the rebels won, they would keep the United States out. Oh, I get it now. Now I see. They were afraid that they would keep the U.S. out. So that means that U.S. hegemony wouldn't be able to creep on in. It wouldn't be able to creep on in if that was the case. A young British officer wrote that Spanish cruelty was less important than Anglo-Saxon interest, which required that Spain keep control of Cuba. So they were kind of having a dilemma. So they were thinking that, we could arm these rebels, but then he feared if the rebels win, then nothing for us. Nothing for us. but what's in it for us? Yeah, so the imperialists were having a dilemma here. A young British officer wrote that Spanish cruelty was less important. Oh, yeah, I already read that part. 2/5 of the insurgents are. I'm not going to read that word because just because certain words I'm not going to read on here just because I don't want. I'm not taking any risks with YouTube. 2/5 of the insurgents are blank. These men would, in the events of success, demand a predominant share in the government of the country, the result of being another republic. I'm just going to say republic. Another republic meant Haiti, which revolted against France in 1803 and became the first nation run by blacks in the world. So basically, Haiti was the first country run by the by black people, by the Africans. So they were run by black people, and they were the first in the entire world. And France and the US ended up fucking destroying that fucking country. And with that, Haiti ended up going on a downward spiral because of US interference and hegemony. Not to mention corrupt puppet governments that we've been putting in there that has been robbing the people of Haiti of their resources, resulting in Haiti becoming one of the most corrupt nations in the entire world. Now, I'm not saying that governments are not responsible for their own citizens, because, let's be honest, they are, but it's a double-edged sword. You know, I can be against the way the Haitian government is towards its people, but at the same time, I can also be against U.S. hegemony against Haiti, not to mention the U.S. kidnapping their former president, John Bertrand Arstide, and exiling him in the middle of Africa. Yeah, I can oppose that as well. Oh, but you can't say that. Yes, you can. In 1897, New York media, Mongo William Randolph Hearst began to agitate for intervention in Cuba. He sent celebrity journalist Richard Harding Davis and noted artist Friedrich Remington to cover the rebels. They didn't stay long, but nonetheless churned out copies for Hearst newspaper, the New York Journal. So this was the journal right there. Davis returned to the U.S. on the steamer Olivet. Mr. Davis, the captain would like to join him in the officers' mess. Mr. Davis, Sonorta Clemencia Arango, her brother, commands a rebel group near Havana. Pleased to meet you, Senorita. I would like to speak to you about your experiences. Very well. Then in Havana, Spanish detectives came abroad. A matron searched me for secret documents in my stateroom. Davis knew his business. So did his boss. The violated woman was a Hearst favorite. The New York Journal inflated Clemencia Arango's interview into something much more ominous. The New York Journal basically there's not that much. Well, there's kind of a lot to read, but it just shows the newspaper right here. It just shows the newspapers, basically ripped from the headlines. Both McKinley and the business community begin to see that getting Spain out of Cuba cannot be accomplished without war. A belligerent spirit infected the Navy Department, encouraged by manufacturers of projectiles, ordnance, ammunition, and other supplies. Banker Russell Sage said that if war comes, there is no question as to where the rich men stand. On March 25th, a McKinley advisor wired the White House, "Big corporations now believe we have war, believe all would welcome it as a relief to suspense." Labor unions supported the Cuban rebels but opposed American expansion. Labor expansions against American expansionism? Yeah, I know you're shocked. The monthly journal of the International Association of Machinists agreed that the explosion of the main was a terrible disaster, but noted that workers' death of industrial accidents was met with national indifference. So it was another piece right here that was just like, ripped from the headlines. The Monthly Journal, talking about the International Association. Smoked Yankees, the Black 25th Infantry. Within months, the U.S. invaded Cuba. Oh, gee, yeah, here we go. Among the remnants were the famous Rough Riders, New Mexico Cowboys, and Ivy League polo players. One of them was Teddy Roosevelt, who had this uniform hand tailored at Brooks Brothers. A more obscure unit was the Black 25th U.S. Infantry, veterans of the final campaign against the Sioux in 1891 at Pine Ridge and striking Miner in Montana a few years later. Fucking brutal bastards. June 14th, 1898, the 25th shipped out of the hold to the former cattle ship Concho, carefully segregated by officers from a white unit. Sergeant Frank W. Pullen wrote about his experience within the 25th in Cuba. We landed in Cuba on June 22nd, and we were greeted on shore by a ragged army. About as ragged as a Raggedy Ann. I'm sorry, I just had to do a little play on words. It stirred our hearts to see them, most without coats or shoes, but each one careful of his gun, ammunition, and machete. Now, obviously, I was obviously just playing around with words. I think of Raggedy, I think Raggedy, and forgive me for that one. 2 days later, the entire setup, it was a total setup, all set out on a forced march through the jungle towards Santiago, with the Rough Riders in the lead. Sergeant Pullen, yes sir, the Rough Riders and the Black 10th Infantry will attack at San Juan Hill, the Massachusetts 2nd, and your colored boys will attack at El Caney. Like San Juan, El Caney was a hill defended by a blockhouse full of Spaniards. Unlike San Juan Hill, few have heard of this battle fought on the same day. Early morning of July 1st, our artillery opened up on the stone fort known as Aviso. Entrenched Spanish troops answered our fire. We fought all day to reach a position strong enough to launch another attack. By the time we arrived at our new position, the 2nd Massachusetts was retreating. It's no use, they're slaughtering us. We saw we could not take the Spanish trenches without charging them without a command, but with the Comanche yelled the 25th attack, each man his own captain. Meanwhile, our white officers watched from a distance. After terrible losses, we reached the top of the hill. Private T.C. Butler was the first man to reach El Viso, and the first to reach the Spanish flag on top of the fort. Hooray, we got it! Soldiers, hand over the flag! No! Butler tore off a corner of the flag to substantiate his report to his colonel of the injustice done to the 25th. There were no photographers at El Caney. At San Juan Hill, blacks were excluded from the newspaper's victory photo. Oh, I wonder why that could be. The spoils of war. 5,462 soldiers and officers died during the war, but only 379 were battle casualties. The rest died of disease or putrid food, including 500,000 pounds of rotting canned meat sold to armies by Armour and Company of Chicago. Some 10 were so foul they had burst. Well, you basically gave them poison. That's essentially what it was. Did you hear? Johnny died. Yep, I heard. Killed by armors and And bound beef. Yeah, because you poisoned them. You poisoned them with spoiled shit. As it turned out, black and white soldiers alike often faced more dangerous enemy than the Spanish. War profiting. So yeah, what was a bigger threat than war profiting in the U.S.? What was more of an enemy than the Spanish colonizers? The military-industrial complex profiting from a war. Remember the history? History right here, ladies and gentlemen. July 17, 1898, the U.S. Army raised the flag of the governor's palace in Santiago. The war in Cuba was over. The Americans refused to allow the Cubans to participate in the terms of Spain's surrender. The U.S. kept all the Spanish civil authorities in charge of municipal offices. Before they left, Spanish troops signed a statement praising U.S. conduct in the war and denounced the Cuban rebels as people without a religion, without morals, without a conscience, and of doubtful origin. But if I remember correctly, didn't they want to arm rebels? Let me say if I got this correct. Didn't they want to do that? But they were thinking if they armed them and they had won, that would mean no U.S. hegemony, so they wouldn't get anything out of it. If the rebels won, there'd be nothing for the imperialists. That's what I remember from this, at least as far as I know. You can fact check me on that one, but that's what I remember. And almost finished with this chapter. Ooh, making good timing too. Thomas Liberto, the U.S. has disbanded our liberation army. There is nothing left for you but to go home. Then all we have done is trade one occupier for another. I was just going to say that. So Spain colonized Cuba for hundreds of years. So they kicked them the fuck out. And then now we have another empire. They told the Spanish Empire to just shoot. Like, bye. See ya. Nope. Ooh, the U.S. Empire thought, oh, yes, now we can. And then we can expand. We can expand into their borders, yeah. Well, that didn't age well, did it? All we have done, pray this cannot be our fate after years of struggle. Viva Cuba Libre? Cuba's new constitution made the island a protectorate of the United States. The Plate Amendment of 1901 allowed the U.S. to intervene at any time in Cuban affairs. Well, that's what Fidel Castro wanted to stop more than 60 years later. And that's where he came in. Many years later. And required Cuba to provide land for American Air Base at Guantanamo.
Including some folks who are more dangerous than most Gitmo detainees. They're in our prisons. And given my administration's relentless pursuit of Al-Qaeda's leadership, there is no justification beyond politics for Congress to prevent us from closing a facility that should have never been opened. Even after we take these steps, one issue will remain, which is how to deal with those Gitmo detainees who we know have participated in dangerous plots or attacks, but who cannot be prosecuted, for example, because the evidence against them has been compromised or is inadmissible in a court of law. But once we commit to a process of closing Gitmo, I am confident that this legacy problem can be resolved, consistent with our commitment to the rule of law.
Well, that didn't age well, did it? Yeah. General Leonard Wood, military governor of Cuba, wrote to Theodore Roosevelt, "There is, of course, little or no independence left in Cuba under the Platt Amendment." Well, there wasn't. There fucking wasn't. The U.S. basically just wrote its own rules. That, oh, yeah, we can go intervene in Cuba anytime we want. We can just go intervene in Cuba anytime we want. Because it's like a fucking U.S. colony. It was a Spanish colony, but then they wanted to trade it so it could be a U.S. colony. And that's where the socialists in Cuba stepped in and be like, no, 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 we're not dealing with this. No, fuck you, we're not dealing with this. And that's when the revolutionaries stepped in, and then the U.S.-Cuba embargo that continued for more than 6 decades, and the list goes on and on. It wasn't until the revolution in 1959 that Marti's and Marquez's dream of a Cuba free from foreign domination was realized. Yes, and that's the reason why the U.S. has been embargoing them for more than half a century, because they released themselves from the shackles of U.S. imperialism. Fidel Castro stepped in and said, we are an independent nation, we are a socialist nation, this is for the people to decide. That's what they did, and then that's when the U.S., under Dwight Eisenhower, who warned us about the military-industrial complex, but what did Dwight Eisenhower do? He reversed himself, and he stood with the same institution that he criticized, the military-industrial complex, to initiate the U.S. trade embargo, which continues today. And with that concludes this segment of my reading series of A People's History of American Empire, a graphic adaptation by The American Empire Project by Howard Zinn, author of A People's History of the United States. Mike Konopacki and Paul Bull. If I'm butchering those names, or if I'm butchering any other words in this book, I do apologize. I try to read out words as best as I can. I definitely think, obviously I can read. I can definitely read pretty well. Not bragging or anything, not one way or another. Some words, obviously, might need, everyone does. I mean, are we all gonna know everything? Are we all gonna know words? Yeah, no. But anyway, thank you, my dear friend, my dear comrade, my great friend and subscriber to this channel, Nicholas Blythe. Thank you for recommending this book to me, and I got it off of Amazon, and it is now mine. Thank you, Comrade Nick. I really appreciate it, and I will continue with this series and more, and many more to come, and for that, we thank you. And that concludes episode 1 of Zach Reed's A People's Story of American Empire. Well, that's about it for now. Thank you, everybody who was listening. Hope you all enjoyed this. Hope you all enjoyed a few, funny moments that I basically did some, I read the book, and then I did some reactions, with some clips of some things that are definitely relevant today, and, all that type of good stuff. So I did that, and, threw a few jokes in here, here and there, but anyway, just my usual, but hope you all enjoyed, and again, thank you, Nicholas, for recommending this book. It's really awesome. I really like it, and I definitely look forward to reading more. I will be reading more going forward when I get the chance, and I will definitely be doing more of this book series on this channel. Look out for it. More stuff on the way. This is Zach the Sully's guy saying thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, and I'll be back with more, and I'll see you all on Thursday at 7 p.m. with my next stream. We got many more topics to discuss and many more things to come, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace. Have a great night, and I will see you all in the next one. Stay safe. Stay well, be well, stay classy, and keep fighting, and keep on rocking. See you all in the next one. Peace out, and good night. So long.